Well, for those of you that have followed along in the last video, you'll know that we've got some work to do to this chopper. We've got a pallet of parts there that we need to put into it. We had an inspection done and so on and so forth. I described everything in the last video. The video I did before this one, I don't have the job done yet because I'm waiting for parts. I'm stepping into this video and we're going to start working on the jobs that we need to get done on this chopper. The last video, I broke it up as a single video, or a single job for that matter, because we ended up putting this update kit into this chopper that holds this blower assembly that sucks the material off the screen and the air filter and everything like that. You'll have to follow along in the last video, but I broke it up because I don't know how many people are going to be doing this job or this update kit to their chopper. It's all of the 8000 series, and some of the 9s have updated to a bracket similar to this one on some of the 9s, and the smaller 8000s are using this bracket as well, but their orientation of the blower is a little different. But the video I did before this one is mainly for the 8700 and the 8800, but it'll coincide with the other machines as well. So we have a pile of parts here like I described in the last video. We did have CAS come over and they did a winter inspection of this machine, and then what we were able to do is look at potential wear items that were going to maybe not allow us to get through all of next year without having a problem. And with the winter inspection, it gave us an opportunity to get a discount on some parts. So some of these parts that you see sitting in front of the chopper here, some of them we had to have, some of them we needed, and some of them I wanted. So I've got blower paddles and the rear part of the blower panel that I ordered because they're expensive. We got the discount on it. However, it does not need to be put into the chopper at this time. What we're going to work on next here is the alternator bracket, and I described it in the last video. John Deere has an inspection list for their technicians to look at specific parts of any machine, whether it be a tractor, a combine, a chopper, a baler, a hay bind, what have you. They catalog all the problems they have from when the machine is new to the end of its lifespan. And different hours and different hour intervals, they have recognized that, hey, you know, you've got to pay attention to this, or you got to pay attention to that. And one of the items that was on the list, which I cannot believe I missed it, was this alternator bracket. Now it just looks like a rust line coming down the alternator, but it's cracked, it's broken. How long would it last? I don't know, but we don't need that breaking and then maybe winding this belt up into, well, the AC pump, the AC compressor. We don't need to lose our AC. Maybe it takes a bearing out of one of these tensioner pulleys or something, because the alternator ends up cocking itself. So we've got that issue. One other issue, and I described it in the last video, is these hoses here. Now, I kind of noticed them, but I was kind of ignoring them, but it was on John Deere's radar, and I said, well, I kind of noticed it, and then I was told, and then if I have a problem, I'm really going to kick myself. So we're going to replace those. We have the sharpening stone. We're going to pull that out and we're just going to rebuild it. It is, and some of you have noticed it in the last couple of videos, it doesn't stay tight and it wanders, and that's not doing the job it needs to do. It needs to be rebuilt. I've tried tightening it up, and there's no tightening left to it. So we've got those parts in the box here. And I thought there was one other thing. I'm probably forgetting something, but we might as well go ahead and get started here. I'm gonna wait to put blower paddles in this until after first cut, and we're just gonna hold on to them parts. Another item that I missed, I didn't know about it, you cannot see it, but John Deere said, watch out for this bracket right here. It's been known to crack. So I've got to weld that. That has started to pull away a little bit. Not much. You cannot see, only just a little bit at the very top. So we're going to go ahead and weld that. The fan belts. We blew a set of belts doing chopping corn in 2021. I put a set of... what it is it's a doubled up V-belt. I've got one over here, I thought. So it's a doubled up V-belt. So it's just one belt, but there's two of them. And at the time, John Deere didn't have one in stock, so I matched it up to a couple of Napa belts. I think it was a B68 or a B72. I think it was the same belt the silent loader took. So I threw a set of them on there in 21. I figured the first set of belts lasted me 3-4 years. I should be good. I smoked a set of belts on this this fall chopping corn, and Jared had to bring me over a set of belts, and we were dead in the water for about 45 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and put a John Deere belt on there, and the reason why we need to change it out so quick now is there is a spot in these belts, a bad spot, which it's probably going to blow during first cutting. I don't care if that belt's $500. If you blow a belt in the middle of the day, you might as well say that breakdown cost you $1,000. So we're going to go ahead and replace that too. So let's get to work. We're going to change this bracket out first thing. We're going to work from the ass end of this chopper, and we'll go up front here. So we'll go ahead and release the tension on this serpentine belt pulley, which this one is real easy to get to. Some of these serpentine belt pulleys, my God, it takes you half a day just to get a tool on them in order to release the tension. So this is a basic, just a simple job here. This bracket is actually in two pieces. So we have this new bracket on the bench here, and I know what you're gonna say, geez, Andy, just weld that, you know, why put a new bracket on there? Well, if it has cracked here, it's probably gonna crack there. So what do? Forge a whole new bracket to, you know, drill a hole in this, have it fit all around there, bring it down and weld it in there, and then after I do that, well, geez, it might crack right here. So it's just sometimes better to replace the part. Now, if this ear broke off, and maybe this one up here, and we didn't have this bracket that we could get our hands on, yes, go ahead, weld it quickly, get back going, and get through the day or days. Now, a moment ago, I said a breakdown will cost you $1,000. When we have hay on the ground, a breakdown will cost more than $1,000 of downtime. It doesn't matter how much the parts are. Usually a simple little breakdown like this that costs you a few hours is more than $1,000. So this is a very simple, easy fix, and we'll go ahead and get it off, show you what it looks like off of there, and then get the new one on. So we have the alternator removed, and there was one tab out of 4 that was holding this alternator in place. So kudos to John Deere for saying, hey, you guys got to look at that. So we seen that this one was cracked. However, we did not know that the front part of the bracket was cracked as well. This alternator fits in between these 2 brackets, and there's one bolt at the top that goes all the way through and one bolt at the bottom. So the brackets are sandwiched on either side of the alternator right there. Now this machine here has 2 alternators on it. And you might say, well, geez, Andy, big deal. It's a big unit. Should have 2 alternators. Well, it has the 12-volt system and it has a 24-volt system. So the main part of the harvester works off of 12 volt. However, the engine, being that this engine is a Cummins, it has a 24 volt starter on it. So there's a separate alternator on this other side of the engine that charges the batteries that's meant for starting, and that's it. So there's 2 batteries. Well, there's 3 batteries on this chopper, but one of them is 12 volt, and the other ones are hooked in series, and to run the 24 volt system. So we would have lost AC. We would have lost a lot of components on the chopper. It just would not have run, because when the choppers get down, if any of you guys are having goofy glitches with anything, you probably need to replace your batteries, and or you need to look at your alternator. If it so much as falls 1 volt below what it regularly is supposed to run at, you'll have issues with different controllers of the chopper, because it doesn't take much of a fluctuation in amperage and voltage to screw up anything. It could be anything. It could be your park brake release. It could be your feed roll reverser. It could be all that stuff. So it is crucial to be able to keep this stuff going. Now, sometimes, you get a tractor, the alternator's a little bummed up on it. You get to the end of the field, throw the battery charger on it for a while, let it charge up for a little bit, go back, work at it, you're good for an hour and a half or 2 hours. Not on these things. They need to be 100%. So we might as well get this bracket off in there. Well, that's what the bracket looks like, all on there. I know, boring. However, one thing I noticed was this new bracket had some threaded holes, some 8mm holes in it. We got a bolt there and a bolt there. Let me see if I can get this back so you guys can see it. On the old bracket, the holes are there, but there was no bolts holding that together. So we have this is the back bracket here. We have some nuts welded on the back side, and then this would have sat on there like this, and then this would have sandwiched over the top of that. We would have had the bolt going down through here and here. I don't know if that was a contributing factor to maybe these ears all breaking off, but it's bolted together now, so I don't know. Maybe it'll break quicker. Who knows? But we'll get this alternator bolted into place and get our belt on. We've got our oil leak sealed up here. Once we put this other bolt and this cover sealed itself back up, so we are in good shape there. Well, that's what that looks like all together. So we'll just slap our belt on, and then we'll move up. I guess I'm gonna put the fan belts on next. So we'll just get our 1/2" drive ratchet. We'll stick that in this belt tensioner here. We'll pull this guy up out of the way. This does have the ability to put a pin in it so that you could kind of more or less pull this tensioner. Oh, you could pull the tensioner with the belt on there and then shove a pin in right here, and that would lock this belt tensioner into place so that you could get the belt off. So that's how that looks, and I'll show you what this belt tensioner has. This one has an ear here and then one on the back side, and you could pull the belt by hand and get it up, put a pin in it of some kind. Some belt tensioners don't even have the ability to put a square drive ratchet in there. So that's done. Let's move forward. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and replace the fan belt. Actually, there's fan belts on here now. I've already released the tensioner. There's a spring tensioner right down in there. So we'll kind of set you guys up right here. Alright, so we have our belt tensioner removed. And then we'll go ahead and just kind of roll these off at the same time. Oh my god. Yeah, this outer one, or inner one rather, has got some chunks taken out of it. Yeah, this belt is bad. Look at that guy there. So we'll kind of fish that off. We got to let it kind of fall forward off of the bottom pulley to get this other belt off, and then we'll just kind of try to get them. Yeah, this would not have made it through first cutting. Look at that guy there. She would have spit herself out. That's not good. So we'll try to fish the new one in there. Get it to drop down around the bottom one. I'm probably going to have to jump off the chopper, go and try to fish this down in there. Wait a minute, I might have got it. I might have got it. Hold on. Hold on. There's a lot of room to work in here, but there's a lot of things to work around. Yeah, that didn't stay in place there. Let me climb up in here. Get it down. Come on. Alright, I think I got it. Over the bottom pulley. Come on now. Are we over it? Yeah, I think it's in there. I think it's on there. I can't get it. Try rolling it this way. That tensioner has got to There we go. Now I just got to make sure it stayed on the bottom of that pulley. Is it on the bottom pulley? Yes, it is. Alright, so I've just got to tighten up this belt tensioner. Then this belt tensioner's got an indicator on this front side, so I gotta squish that spring down until we get to right where that indicator is sitting up level with the spring. Well, we've got those on there as it's just a simple task. We'll show you what these old ones looked like. The one belt that was on the back side, which this is the one that Rich seen that was bad. This one's all dry rotted and just shot. The one on the front is not in that bad a shape. So I don't know if we would have had a good belt like this one on the back side, if it would have lasted longer or not. But we'll throw these guys in the garbage. I've got the Pro Drive, which is the front axle, or the transmission that drives the front axle. I've got the oil draining out of that, and now I'm gonna try to sneak these hoses off of there. I don't know how much of a mess I'm gonna make, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna find out. So we'll get our hose clamps released and swap out those hoses. So we'll see what kind of a mess this turns into. I've got the one clamp removed. I'm taking them right off the hose because that's how I'm going to put them back on. I'm going to try to get the hose off quickly and just go ahead and put the new one right back on there. So I've got to find the hose. This one. This one right here. I might as well go and get that out of the baggie. The light that I usually use that I put to my brim, that battery went out on that. That's on the charger, and I'm using a Pair-on Mini right now. And that seems to be working pretty good. Doesn't seem to be that we've got too much oil here. Get that on there. Trying to kink that. That there. Pull this off. She's going to spit a little bit. Put that right back on there. Alright. Didn't lose too much oil there. Now, I got to get me a grease rag. Let's clean this up, get the hose clamps on, then we'll do the other one. So the cloth rags, they are, or the paper rags, are a lot better than the cloth rags. We have been using these cloth rags for quite a while, and they are more absorbent than traditional red grease rags. We've got that cleaned up. Put our hose clamps into place. Now this Pair-on Mini light, that works like the other ones do. They charge from a magnetic charger. However, this one, as you can see, is on a headband. So for those of you that don't wear a hat, this would be an alternative to the other light that I use. I much more prefer the, it's an old one. It's a Baton 1, but what they're selling now is the Baton 3. And it's, it's only like that big. Works great on the hat. The only problem with it is if you're only carrying it for a light, it's a little small to be holding in your hand to, do any kind of inspection on anything. It's doable. The larger light than it doesn't really work that great on a hat. I mean, it works, but it's there. That little light that I have, you don't even know the damn thing's on your hat. Matter of fact, you'll be working along and next thing you know, somebody will come up to you, go to talk to them, and you're blinding them because the light's shining right in their eyes. Alright, so there's that one. And we've got one more here. And then there's a third hose. I don't know where it goes, so I've got to do a little searching. Back clamp removed. Oh, where is this one? Got to catch all pails. Probably going to end up tipping over. Before I'm done with this job, and everything that we've managed to catch is probably going to be on the floor anyways. We're used to oiling the floor here. That we are used to doing. That clamp. This hose is next. So we'll get this guy popped off. And oh, get up there. Alright. There we go. This hose has got a little oil in it. So we're going to pull our catch-all out of here. Alright, so we will get our clamps on. And then I've got one other hose. I don't know where that goes. I have this guy right here. I might have to take a walk around this thing a couple times. Well, we've managed to get these two hoses replaced. I did it without draining any oil out of the system, and I did a decent job without making too much of a mess. So the old hoses are dry rotted, and you can kind of see the cracks in them. Cracks are opening right up. Could possibly have a couple of years, but once you see something like that and you have a problem, it's too late. There's one other hose that we have to replace, and that's coming off the other side of that oil reservoir, and it's dumping in that 3-stage or triple stack pump there. However, we don't have the right hose. So we're gonna have to get the right hose for that and change that one as well. That one might be a little more of a challenge because we've got oil coming out of that. It might potentially come out at a pretty good rate on us, so we're going to have to do a quick change there. So we've got to go ahead and look up some parts here, so we'll join up with you in a little while here once we figure out what's going on with that hose. Well, now we'll roll in underneath this chopper and we'll show you what we have on the Pro Drive axle here. We have a seal that is weeping right here. So we're going to go ahead and pull this shaft apart that goes over to the right wheel, and we're going to see if we can't pluck out this seal. You can kind of see that it's wet around the base of the shaft, and maybe you can't, and there we go, right there. So we'll go ahead and get this taken apart. We've got a bolt to take out of this drive collar here, and another one right there, and then that'll allow us to get this drive shaft out, and then we can maybe hopefully pull that seal right off of the shaft and then put a new one in there. Well, before we pull that shaft apart, I'll show you what all the noise is about over here. Hard was hauling manure with us. He went by the shop the other day. We heard it clanging and banging. And this rim here broke itself. So we're going to go ahead and get that welded. Get him on out the door here. We figured we would get the air out of it. Safer to weld it that way, right? Huh? Safer to weld it with it without having any air in it. So, even though with air in it, it'll be true to the tires. We just gotta pound it a little. Yeah. They've got some new tires to put on as well, and that air gun is wore out. I think we're gonna have to replace it. So these rims here, they're not that old. I think we put them on a little while ago here, maybe a couple months ago. So at least when it comes time to paint this one, after we weld it, we won't have to only paint the welded spot. So that's unfortunate, but at least it broke where it did, and it didn't break like right here. It'll make it easier to weld. And he didn't go that far with it either. So we'll be able to get that right back into place there. Alright, so we're getting ready to pull this seal. I've got a hole drilled in it. We're going to try to run the screw in to see if we can't pull it out. go. Alright, so we got that guy out. And the spring, you can't quite see it, but the spring is what failed, and that is setting inside of, well, it's on this side of the bearing. So we'll go ahead and clean up this shaft. I know you guys can't see hardly anything, but we'll clean up this shaft, and then we'll just clean up the inside of this housing, and we'll try and get that so the new seal will just go right over that. But we've got to wait until a seal gets here. We'll just dig this spring out. Come to think of it, this spring probably broke when I drilled through the seal itself. It's really hard to tell what is wrong with this exactly, other than it was weeping a little bit, and I can't get my finger in there to tell if we've got a lip on that shaft or not. But we'll just go ahead and clean the shaft up so that when we put that new seal on, it's got a nice smooth surface to slide over. So, well, they have the wheels removed, and the brake drum's going to have to be replaced along with the studs, but at least it didn't chew up a hub. Sometimes when these rims break, it will chew up the keepers on the hub. So we have the rim over here on the floor, and I was joking about welding it. You cannot weld a wheel. You can weld a wheel, but it's not legal to do. We broke a rim a while ago, and I welded it. Did a video on it, mounted the tire on it, showed the rim going on the truck. Then once the camera was off, we took the rim off, mounted the tire onto another rim, and it was a joke. Oh my God, you would not believe the comments. With all of the ignorant people, right, Nathan?
Sure.
But we got a good laugh out of it, didn't we? We always get a good laugh out of it. So, do you see the Kubota skid steer came back? You want to go out and talk about it for a minute? I'm going to talk to the camera so I'll kill two birds with one stone.
Sure.
I could tell you what happened, and we could talk about it as well. So this great Kubota skid steer was just returned to us from White's Farm Supply. And if you recall, we had what we thought was an engine gone in it. What had happened to it was the turbo went. The turbo went, filled the intake with oil. Then the intake threw the oil into the DPF, plugged the DPF, and the injectors were bad. Injectors were covered on warranty. However, we had to pay for the turbo and part of the DPF filter. The other part was covered on the emissions warranty. The engine was replaced on this 1,400 or 1,600 hours ago. I thought sure this engine was bad because when it went in, Sarge, he said he tried to drive it to the pressure washer and sparks were coming out of the exhaust. But that must have been the impeller on the turbo rubbing, and we thought sure it was actually engine components coming together inside. But this machine's got 5,083 hours on it. It had a brand new engine put in it back 1,400 hours ago. So we'll see how long it lasts this time around. So it's cold and nasty out here. I gotta go back inside, Nate. You guys done with that spreader?
I think so.
Yeah. So they pulled that spreader out, took the injector off of it. They've got everything done on it. They just want this ready to go in case we need it to spread with. We won't use the injector on it. But they're gonna go ahead and put the spread plate on there and park it. So that's the story on the Kubota. I know some of you have wanted information on that. They're an okay skid steer, but they're just not a John Deere. The other thing that I never shown you was this Group 31 battery box that Jared put on his mini truck. That's working out really well for him. Got that all on there, and yeah. Alright, next thing we're gonna do, since we can't do anything more with the Pro Drive axle shaft and filling the reservoir and whatever, we're going to weld this crack here. We're gonna have to clean this up with a grinder. Just welding it is gonna do, but it's probably gonna crack at a later date. I'm gonna take a piece of iron and put it on here. I don't know if I'm just gonna bring a strap down and hook to this bolt, or if I'm just going to maybe cut a piece of angle iron and weld it right over the top of this with a hole drilled in it. Therefore, if I put a piece of angle iron on there, I won't need to weld this. So I got to figure out what I'm going to do. I got to see what I have for material. The other thing I could do is put a piece on, weld this piece, and then put a piece on the other side as well. That might be my better option, and kind of strengthen that up as well. And then when I was putting the belt on, I noticed that one of these brackets on top of this valve body was cracked too. This one right here is cracked. So we're going to reach down in there and put a nice weld across it. Alright, so I have a length of 1.5 inch angle iron. That's just 11 gauge, 1/8 inch. That'll be perfect for the job. We've got a chunk measured out that's 3 inches long. We'll cut that, take it over to the bench, drill a 1/2 inch hole in it, and then we'll just clean up the side of that chopper there and bolt it right in front of the broken piece. So we'll go ahead and get this cut. We can take it over and get it drilled. Okay, so I've got a piece of angle iron cut with a hole drilled in it, and I've got the side of the frame here, actually it's the side of the radiator, cleaned up. We're gonna go ahead and gap this just a little bit, so if this green bracket needs to be taken out, it's not sandwiched in real tight. And then that other little makeshift tab that they have on there, we've got that cleaned up. We'll weld that as well, and get this bolted up, and then we can get some paint on there after it has cooled down. Well, we went ahead and welded that angle iron on there and welded that piece that was cracked. That ain't gonna hold much, but the angle iron will do all of what needs to be done there. And then we snuck a bead of weld on this broken bracket here. I was able to sneak in on each side. With the nozzle on the MIG gun, I thought maybe I was gonna have to stick weld it, but we were able to get right in there and get that welded. So we'll let this cool down and then we can throw some paint on it. Alright, we splashed some paint on that. That almost looks like factory. And we put a little paint on that bracket there. We are waiting for that hose there that comes off the reservoir tank and our seal for up front here. Well, what we can work on now while we're waiting for the seal to get here is we're going to pull the sharpening stone unit out, which is right in this cabinet here. We're going to get that out, and we've got to completely rebuild that unit there. Now you'll see they've got the 8,500 gallon tank in here, and they're doing some work to it. We have a bearing box that was replaced a while ago that is now gone again up front here. And they're going to go ahead and check the fan as well to see how that is. And they're working on the back end of it. On the injector, Nathan broke a U-bolt yesterday, so he's not going to bother with putting a cheap U-bolt back in there. He's going to put a plate on the back side with a couple of 5/8 bolts that go through it. Right, Nathan? Yep. Now that's probably going to drop on the floor on you.
I'm not taking it all the way off.
You're not going to take it all the way off. Okay. Well, you had a 3/4 inch bolt on this side. Right? That's 3/4 there. And 1/2 inch. Yeah. Well, I don't know. This is all dirty. You should have washed it before it came in. Alright, so in order to get this unit out, it slides on a shaft that runs the width of the cutter head on the chopper. You can see that shiny shaft. Looks like it's probably 1 3/4 or 2 inch. And there's a bearing cap or a cap on each end. We'll have to take each side off and then slide that one way or the other to get that. Probably could slide it out this way to get the sharpening stone unit out of there. Now what there is a little, it's a hydraulic motor here that spins this chain and it pulls the unit over to this side, and then once it gets so far, then the hydraulic motor spins the other way to turn the chain to send it back across to the right hand side. And what is wrong with this is has an advancement feature on there to where it comes over to this side, it knocks that one tooth to advance the stone down into the knife. That unit there has some shims in there, and there's some parts that need to be replaced in it, and then there's also a roller bearing on that back side that slides along this shaft that we're going to replace. And then there's some shims, of course, that go on the top. The shims are important because that'll close up that gap to make it ride tighter on this aluminum channel or stainless, whatever it's made out of, stainless channel. So we'll get these end caps off and do our best to try to get this shaft to move one way or the other. Well, we just got our bolts off of our end caps, and when I was taking the last bolt out, Casanova showed up with our seal. So we're going to go ahead and get the seal in so that I can get oil pumped back into that Pro Drive, and then we'll jump back up here to taking that stone sharpening unit out. Alright, so we're going to throw this seal in. We're just going to spray some lube on there. Took and cut a piece of pipe that's going to match the seal, and it's going to fit right over the shaft, therefore we can pound that guy right in there. Got that there. We'll go ahead and we'll just use this blunt-ended tool here to kind of start it. Alright, we'll go ahead and put our drive shaft back on, and then we can put the oil in it. This is going to go on there just like so. Get these tight, and then we'll go ahead and get oil put back into this. Then we're going to have to jump underneath here with a grease gun and just put a little grease on this drive coupler just so that it keeps them lubed for removal. Well, they've got the rims replaced on this truck, and they ended up putting 4 tires on the back. They had to turn it around so that they could work on the exhaust manifold gaskets on this, which have been leaking for a while. And this is an ISX Cummins engine, and Sarge pulled the intake tube off of the turbo here, and the air cleaner, the inner air cleaner, the rubber piece had come off of it, and it done sucked itself through and right down into the turbo. And that's what it looks like. So you can see the side of the engine here is all black. I don't know if the manifold is cracked or not, but we're assuming it's just gaskets we've got to do. Yeah, there's a bolt broke back there. And yeah, so at any rate, we've got to do the gaskets on the C5 as well. And I'm just kind of looking here. I see we've got an oil leak somewhere. We're not really sure what that is. It could be the oil line going to the turbo. It looks like it's kind of kinked there anyways, and we'll have to get that fixed as well. So looks like we got our hands full on this one here. They're going to remove the turbo so that we can airline. I don't know where this went. Got to remove the turbo so that it's easier to get the exhaust manifold off, and then it looks like I'm going to have to dig in there and get that broken bolt out. Hopefully it just fell out, but I imagine it's broke off, so that's going to be fun. Yeah, fun stuff. So Jason ended up pulling this Kubota skid steer in, ran a grease gun around it, and they've got some light bulbs that they're replacing. He's got the windows cleaned up on this, and on the John Deere skid steer it's a little more involved than on this one, but these ones here you can just take these nuts off all the way around. The window comes right out, and it allows you to be able to wash them a little better. So they've got a couple of light bulbs to change here, and then we'll let the guys start using it again and see if it keeps itself together. Alright, so this little guy came off this left side, but this right side here, this doesn't want to move. So we might have to get after that, maybe whack it with a hammer to get that guy to move. Alright, typical fashion here, we can't get this off, but at least not just yet. This is the right side of the rod that the stone slides on. So we're able to move it out to here. Of course, we can't get it by the tire, but we will be able to get it by the tire once we remove the stone unit. So we're going to try to slide that off that way. Then we can get this rod out. It would be nice if these ends would go on or off easily, so we could slide this each way. It would be better to slide it that way because the stone's on this side. That's rather heavy to move across the unit, but we'll try and get that slid over. Alright, we managed to get the stone unit slid off. We got this shaft out, and then what we'll have to do is we'll have to try to get this end off again so that when this needs to get done at a later date, it'll all come apart easily. So we have the stone sharpening unit out. We'll go ahead and get that all tore apart. All of the hammering that you hear in the background is Jared trying to get this fan or impeller off of the front end of this unit here. So he's got it, the fan housing is taken out, or the fan itself, and he is going to replace the impeller, which is down to paper thin. How long has that been on there?
A year.
That one's been on a year. They changed the bearing box out a while ago, but we don't know why the bearing box didn't last. But he's trying to get that off. and it looks like he's gaining on it ever so slightly. So on the back side of this spreader, we got Nathan working on her. He got his bracket put together on the other side, and he's putting new tips and boots on these boots here. I explained it when we were doing the 6,000 gallon tanker. They get worn, they'll get wiggling like this. So we retrofitted a piece of flat bar that goes between here and the top bolt, and what that does is it keeps it rigid. Not only does it keep it from coming out ahead too far or forward too far, it keeps it from going sideways. They should put that tab on there to go with the Dietrich tips, shouldn't they, Nathan? Yep. You like that design, don't you? Yep. It's a good design you come up with. Very good design. If only we had the tabs all made ahead of time, it would make things a lot easier. So what Nathan is doing now, he had the bright idea of saying, you know what, why don't we go ahead and make a bunch of them to have, and that's what he's doing here. So he's gonna get this whole setup on there, get them all set so we can bolt them on, bolt and go, and then he's gonna do another set. So that's that. Well, Sarge has the turbo removed along with the exhaust manifold. We're gonna go ahead and see if we can't work our magic here, getting that stud out, which is right there. So we're gonna weld a nut on there, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna see if we can't get that out, and then he can start putting this back together. Alright, this is the first attempt, and it looks like it was somewhat of a successful one. It just broke is all. It wasn't like it was, I don't know. But so far it's coming out anyways. So that's a good thing, because there isn't a lot of room to work in this back side here. So just thread this out. Oh, I put the nut in place, didn't want to close my helmet down, so I actually welded that with my eyes closed, and you'll kind of see that I'm half in the hole and half out. This engine in this International is kind of tucked in underneath the cab a little bit, but at least it came out. I seen these to where they would come out so damn hard. You'd have to heat them, cool them, weld on several different times, heat them, cool them, and just keep at it, and they would be just a mongrel. So that's all it is. Well, that was successful. First try, welded it with my eyes shut, and I am barely on the stud at all. I mean, if you didn't have any welding skills at all, you could have done that. So that probably would have came out with a freaking magnet. Just stick a magnet on there and just keep turning it, or an O-ring pick. I've seen that happen and had the ability to do that before as well too. So he could start putting this here back together. We've got an oil leak here too. I'm assuming it's this oil line going to the turbo, but he might have had an O-ring or something that was bunged up. So we've got to look into that to make sure we can get this back together without any oil leaking there. So let's get back to working on the chopper. Well, we have our stone sharpening unit on the bench here. We need to take this apart. We've got some new parts to go into it. This is this part here. This is what the stone actually bolts to. So here we have a new stone. That one is, well, I guess we got a little bit of life on there, but we might as well throw that stone out with that bracket. So I have to take this off of there. There's some shims to go in there. There's a new bearing that we're going to go ahead and replace on this back side. This is a little wore out, and then this will tighten everything up, and there is the phone. Well, this looks just a little better than it did a few moments ago. Threaded okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one did. Now it's undecided about her.
Tapping it right now, or pulling the tap back out?
Yeah, it's taking it out. We'll check it.
So he's got the manifold in place. He had problems with number 5 on the bottom. That was just below where we took out the broken stud, and now he is tapping a hole up here on number 2 at the top. Probably should have tapped all of those. It's usually what I do. Retap them, clean them out. But this had an engine done on it, oh, maybe 2 years ago. And yeah, so we put a new oil line on down here, and he's thinking that the O-ring was just gone, that was leaking, so it might not have been the line at all, but it's got that in there. So it won't bring smoke into the cab anymore, right?
Yeah,
you hope, right? Yeah. This one, we removed the EGR on it. The EGR valve went right there. I removed this one, and the other ISX that we have. The EGR valve goes in there. We removed the cooler. I don't know, did I remove the cooler on the C5? I think I left the cooler on that one.
You left the cooler on there. I think you just put the plug plates on it.
Yeah. So that looks like it still has it on there, but we've got it capped off on the C5 too, so. But, kind of opens up this area a little bit. Well, if that had that EGR cooler on there, you'd have been removing that too.
Mm-hmm.
That'd have been in the way.
More pain in the ass too.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave him alone, and he'll have this on there in a little while. He's got to bolt the turbo back on and whatever. So, well, this is where we are going to sign off with the video. We have to get some parts in here, and then we will finish up with the sharpening stone unit. And while we're waiting for those parts to come in, what I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to start on getting everything done in here, and hopefully the parts come in tomorrow to finish up the job that we need to get done on the front end of the chopper here. So with that being said, that is going to do it for this video. I want to thank you for watching, and we will catch you at the next video.